Okay, so today we are going over some central tendencies graphs. So you have two problems right here. I would like you to go ahead and pause the video, and I want you to go ahead and make these stem and leaf plots, and then come back when you have done those example problems. So now that you've done both of those problems, we are going to go ahead and make those stem and leaf plots. So I'm going to start by making one for John. So we're going to label one side as stem, one side as leaf. And we're going to make just a T-chart just like this. And I see that I'm going to have 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've got 13 right here, so I'm going to put a 3. Then I've got 26, so I'm going to come down to the 2 and put a 6. Then I'm going to come down to the 3, and I'm going to put a 0 for 30, a 5 for 35, and an 8 for 38. Then I'm going to put an 8 right here next to the 4 for 48, and a 6 right next to the 5 for 56. Okay, now we are going to make one for Michael. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to label stem and leaf. And I have 10s, 20s, 30s, and 40s, but I do not have any 50s. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 0 for 10, a 5 for 15, and a 6 for 16, because it is important. You want to put these in numerical order when you're doing them. I don't have any 20s, so I'm just going to leave everything blank next to the 2. And I'm going to put a 2 next to 32. Then I've got 44, so I'm going to put a 4 down here next to the 4. 46, so I'm going to put a 6. And 49, so I'm going to put a 9. And those are our two stem and leaf plots right there. So these are pretty easy. They don't really use a lot of math. You just have to kind of split up your 10s and your 1s, and you're listing them that way. So to show you how these can actually help you with those measures of center, we're going to look at number 1 right here. And I've got 1s, 10s, 20s, and 30s. So I'm going to go ahead and make that T-chart with one side labeled stem, the other side labeled leaf. And I've got my 1s, so my stem would be 0 because there's no 10s. And then I've got my 10s, my 20s, and my 30s. So in my 1s, I have 6, and I have 8. In my 10s, I have 15, 16, and 19. In my 20s, I have 20, 23, 24, 24 again, and then 27. And then in my 30s, I have 35, 36, and 38. So now I am finding the median, the mode, and the range. So median, mode, and range. So let's start with the range right here. I can see my very last number, or my biggest number, is 38. And I can see my smallest number, or my very first number, is 6. So I'm going to have 38 minus 6 to give me a range of 32. My mode is going to be any number that appears more than once. So looking here, I've got 24 and 24. So my mode would be 24. And then my median, that is where I'm going to just start crossing things off until I get to the middle. So I'm going to start with 1 at the top, 1 at the bottom, and just kind of follow that pattern until I get to the middle. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers before 23, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers after 23. So that means 23 right here will be our median. So it just kind of makes it a little easier to visualize your data and to find those measures of center. Unfortunately, finding your average and everything, it's not really going to help with that, but with the other 3, it's very helpful. So now you are going to work with 2 sets of data, and we are going to do some box and whisker plots. So you are going to look at number 1 and number 2 right here, and you're going to go ahead and pause the video, and you are going to go ahead and make these 2 box and whisker plots, and you will come back to the video when you are done. So now that you've had the chance to make these box and whisker plots, we are going to come down and do it together. So looking at number 1, the first thing I want to do is put my data in numerical order. So I see right here, 40 is my smallest number. So I've got 40. The next one I've got is 42. Then I've got 46. Then I've got 48. And then it looks like 51. Then 55. Then 58. Then it looks like we've got 66, 67, 68, and 69. So right off the bat, I can fill in my minimum and maximum. So that's going to be 40 and 69. And my quartile 2 right here, that's typically where you want to start. So that's just finding your median, okay? So your median is your quartile 2, which is what we learned yesterday. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 numbers. So 3. So when I mark those off, and I didn't mark them through the number because I wanted to still be able to read the numbers, I see that my median right here is 55. And now what I'm going to do for my quartile 1 and quartile 2 is I'm only going to look at half of these numbers now. So I'm just going to look at this first half right here. So I've got 5 numbers. I'm going to start marking them off on either side. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I see that right here in the middle of this first half is 46. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this second half right here. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 2 on either side. So I see that the middle right here is at 67. So now I have everything, filled out. So all I have to do is actually draw that box and whisker plot now. So I'm going to draw a number line down here. And I'm going to start it at 40. And then I'm going to just skip count by 5s. 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70. Okay, so my minimum right here is 40. My quartile 1 is going to be 46. My median is right here at 55. My quartile 2 is about right here at 67. And my maximum is at 69. So these 3 middle lines are going to come together to make the box for the box and whisker plot. And then we are going to draw these 2 lines right here to get your whiskers. Okay? So that is what it will look like. So all you're doing is taking those numbers we found and putting them into that number line. So now we're going to do number 2 over here. And I'm going to erase the end of that so we've got room. And we are going to just do the same thing. We're going to put these in chronological order as well. So it looks like the first number we have is 1. And the next one would be 5. Then 8. Then 10, then 11, then 12, then 14, then 17, then 19, 20, 22, and 23. So we know that our minimum is 1, our maximum is 23, and we are going to start with that quartile 2. So I'm going to count and see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 numbers. Okay, so since I've got an even number, I know that I'm going to have 6 numbers on either side of that because 6 is half of 12. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then on this side, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have gotten the median right there. And so we are going to do 12 plus 14 divided by 2, which gives me 26 divided by 2, which equals 13. So my median here is 13. For my quartile 1, I'm going to do the same thing. I've got this half right here. And if we look, that is 6 numbers, so it's even. So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 on one side and 1, 2, 3 on the other. So here I'm going to do 8 plus 10 divided by 2, which gives me 18 over 2, which is 9. And then for quartile 3, we're going to do the same thing on this side. I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. So here I'm going to take 19 plus 20 and divide that by 2, which is going to give me 39 divided by 2, which gives me 19.5. So now it is time to make our box and whisker plot over here. So I'm going to draw my number line again down here. This time I'm going to start at 0 and I'm going to go to 24. And I'm going to skip count by 3s. So I'm going to do 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. So my minimum is going to be right here at 1. My maximum right here at 23. My quartile 2 right here at 13. Quartile 1 right here at 9. And quartile 3 about right here at 19.5. So we're going to connect the middle to make our box. And then draw our lines out to get our whiskers. Okay, these are not the prettiest graphs and they are not always the easiest. So just skip count by something that is reasonable, that you feel comfortable with. And as long as your numbers are close, you will be okay. Okay, so don't worry about trying to skip count by 0.5 because you've got that 19.5. Don't do that. Skip count by something that makes sense. Okay, so you don't end up with this massively long and confusing number line. Okay, so now you are going to go ahead and answer these 11 questions based on this histogram. So I want you to pause the video and I want you to answer these 11 questions. So now looking at, I'm sorry, it's not a histogram, bar graph is what I meant to say. So we're going to say which color had exactly 5 cars in the parking lot. Well, I'm actually going to go through this graph and go ahead and write the numbers down. So we see right here, purple had 5, red has 9, green has 7, and blue has 10. So that's going to kind of help us to go ahead and just get that out of the way to start. So which color had exactly 5 cars? That is purple. Were there fewer red cars or fewer green? We know that 7 is less than 9, so we had fewer green. How many cars in total? So we had 5 purple plus 9 red plus 7 green plus 10 blue. So that is going to give me a total of 31 cars. Were there more blue cars or more purple cars? More blue, because 10 is greater than 5. What is the combined number of blue cars and purple cars? We had 10 blue plus 5 purple, so 15 cars. Which car color was there least of in the parking lot? Well, we know that 5 is less than 7. 7 is less than 9, and 9 is less than 10. So purple had the least amount of cars. What is the difference in the number of green cars and the number of blue cars? So we are going to take 10 minus 7 because it's asking for the difference. And the difference there is 3 cars. Which car color is there the most of in the parking lot? We know that 10 up there is the greatest number. So there were the most blue cars. And how many more cars were blue than there were green? That's the same thing as number 7 right here. So we're going to take that 10 minus 7, and we have 3 more blue. How many fewer cars were green than were red? So we're going to take those 9 red cars and subtract the 7 green cars, and we're going to get 2 more. And lastly, how many cars were purple? 5 cars were purple. And I know this feels very elementary and very easy, which is good, but it is something that you're going to see on like the statistics part of your math exam that you take next year as a sophomore, and you will see questions like this on the ACT. So it is good to just go over it periodically to make sure you're still good on how to read a bar graph and everything like that. So we are just going to do those 11 questions because I don't think we really need to go through another set of 11 questions just because it's not that difficult. And we are going to go ahead and move on to making a histogram because these are a little different than a bar graph. So I want you all to go ahead and pause the video and make the 2 histograms from the data that it is asking you to use in these 2 problems. So go ahead and pause the video and come back when you are finished. So now that you have made these 2 histograms, we're going to go over them together. So histograms are different from bar graphs because they use a range. And we're going to go over how to do that exactly. So the first thing we want to do is look at the ranges. The first one we have is 0 to 20. So I'm going to go ahead up here and just highlight every single number that's between 0 and 20. So I've got 17, 19, 13, 7, 14, and that's it. Okay, and luckily these are kind of they're not exactly in chronological order, but they're arranged in an easy order to follow. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers that go in that range. So my tower from 0 to 20 is going to go all the way up to 5. And then you want to shade that in. So you want it to you can just do squiggles in it like this, okay? It doesn't have to be perfectly colored in, but you need to shade it in. So the next thing I'm going to be looking at is any number between 20 and 40. And I just have 1 right here at 27. So we're going to just draw a bar up to 1. And I'm doing mine in different colors, but you do not need to do that. I'm just doing it so it's easier for you all to see while I'm explaining it. So the next thing we're looking at is any number between 40 and 60. And I don't have any, so I'm just not going to put anything there for that range. And now oh wait, I'm so sorry, I do have one. It's right here, 57. I had a little brain fart. So we're going to draw a bar up to 1 right there. And we're going to shade that in as well. And now we're going to look between 60 and 80. So I have 69 that falls in that range, 79 and 77. So I'm going to draw a bar up to 3 because I have 3 numbers that fit that range. And I'm going to shade that in. And then the last little range it gives me is 80 to 100. And I have 1 number that fits in there right here at 86. So I'm going to draw a bar up to 1 and then shade that in. okay? So remember, the main difference between like a bar graph and a histogram is you actually are going to use this term frequency over here on the other side, and you're kind of counting how many times something happens, which can be a little different from the data you use in a bar graph, okay? So we are going to go ahead and look at number 2 over here. We've got those same ranges. So I'm going to go ahead and start with 0 to 20. So I have 16, 5, 13, and 12 that go in that range. So I've got 4 numbers. So we're going to draw a line up to 4. And we are going to shade that in. Then I'm going from 20 to 40. So I've got 31, 32, and 24 that fit that range. So I'm going to draw a line up to 3 because I've got 3 numbers that fit there. Then I'm going from 40 to 60. And I have 47 and 42 that will fit there. So I'm going to draw a line up to 2 because I've got 2 numbers that fit. Then I'm going from 60 to 80. So I've got 77, 76, 60 that fit in there. So I'm going to draw another line. Draw a line up to 3. So I've got 3 numbers that fit there. And then from 80 to 100. Okay, so I want you to pay attention here because I've got 87, 93, and 87 again, which those are not problematic numbers. But right here where I have 80, okay, that is going to go in the 80 to 100 range, not the 60 to 80 range. So when you're thinking about this range right here, this 60 to 80, it's actually going to be 60 to 79, okay? That's going to go there. And then over here, this would actually be like 80 to 99. So you're always going to move those 70, 80, 20, like those multiples of 10 are going to go in the bigger range of the 2 when you do these, okay? So here I've got 4 numbers, so I'm going to draw a bar all the way up to 4. And then I'm going to go ahead and shade that in. Okay, so the next thing we are going to talk about are pie graphs. So looking at pie graphs, we are going to answer these 5 questions down at the bottom, and then we will go over those. So go ahead and pause that while you do that. So now that you've paused that, we are going to look at these questions versus the pie graph. So it says, what is the most favorite item among the customers? So we're going to look for the biggest piece of that pie graph, which is going to be a hot dog right there. Okay, how many customers like the fried chicken? We can see right there that it says 20. The least favorite food, or the smallest piece of that pie graph, is the sandwich. How many customers voted as the burger for their favorite? We can see that right there, 25. And how many customers participated? Well, we've got 30 plus 25 plus 7 plus 13 plus 20. So that is going to be 75 total people.